How much for your life, Omega? The question came from the darkest corner of the tavern, and every man in the room stopped laughing. Emily Carter stood beneath a crooked iron chandelier with rain dripping from the ends of her chestnut hair. Her white wool dress was soaked to the knees, her thin cloak offered almost no warmth, and both hands were clenched around a folded contract she had written herself. 22 years old. No parents. No pack willing to help. And less than one night left to save her younger brother. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. If you believe that kindness is power, hit like and subscribe. These stories remind us love redeems the broken. Now, back to Emily. The tavern smelled of wet leather, smoke, cheap ale, and wolves who made their living doing things respectable men preferred not to see. Mercenaries crowded the wooden tables. Scarred men. Packless wolves. Swords for hire. Emily had spent the last hour approaching them one by one. 5 years, she had told the first. I'll cook. Clean. Keep records. Tend wounds. Whatever honest work you require. Pay my brother's healer tonight, and my labor belongs to you for 5 years. The man had laughed. The second asked what else belonged to him. Emily walked away before he finished the question. The third told her a small Omega would not survive a month on the road. By the fourth rejection, her cheeks were burning. By the sixth, she had stopped feeling embarrassed. Pride became very inexpensive when someone you loved was dying. Noah was 16. That morning, his fever had become so severe he no longer recognized her. The healer had medicine that could save him, but medicine cost silver, and Emily had nothing left to sell. The landlord had already taken their cottage. Her mother's jewelry had paid for 3 days of treatment. Her father's old horse had paid for 2 more. Now there was only Emily. So she had written a price beside her own name. 5 years. I asked you a question. The deep voice came again. Emily turned toward the corner. A man sat alone beside the dying fire. She had noticed him when she entered because everyone else seemed determined not to. He was tall even while seated, broad shoulders filling a worn black leather coat reinforced with dark metal plates. A sword rested against the wall within easy reach. Black hair fell untidily across his forehead. Then he leaned into the firelight and Emily saw the scar. It began near his right temple and cut downward across his cheek, pale and brutal against his light skin. It should have made his face ugly. Somehow, it only made him harder to forget. His eyes remained mostly hidden in shadow. How much? He repeated. Emily swallowed. 30 silver crowns. Someone laughed behind her. 30? For her. More laughter followed. The scarred man did not join them. Emily forced herself to cross the room. Each step felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. She stopped before his table and placed the contract down. 30 crowns tonight. In exchange, I work for you for 5 years. His gaze dropped to the paper. Doing what? Whatever work we agree upon. One dark eyebrow lifted. Emily understood the question behind the question. Cooking. Cleaning. Traveling. Caring for horses. Mending clothes. Treating injuries if necessary. And your body? Her stomach tightened. The tavern suddenly felt very quiet. Emily lifted her chin. Is not included. A mercenary at the next table snorted. Then she isn't worth 30. The scarred stranger turned his head. He did not threaten the man. He simply looked at him. The laughter stopped. Emily noticed something strange then. For the briefest instant, firelight caught the stranger's eyes. Violet. Bright, unnatural violet. Then he looked down, and they disappeared into shadow again. Why 30? He asked. My brother has marsh fever. How old? 16. Parents? Dead. Pack? Emily hesitated. They refused us help after my father died. Something hardened in the stranger's face. So you came here? Yes. To sell 5 years of your life. Emily's fingers trembled. She hid them in the folds of her dress. To buy the rest of his. Silence. The man studied her for so long that Emily began to hear every crack of the fire. Finally, he reached beneath his coat. A leather purse struck the table. Heavy. Emily stared at it. Take it. She opened the purse. Silver glimmered inside. Far more than 30 crowns. Her breath caught. I can't, you can. What do you want? He extended one large, scarred hand toward the contract. Emily gave it to him. His eyes moved across the page with surprising speed. Not the slow reading of a hired sword. Something precise. Educated. He took a piece of charcoal from beside the fire and drew one dark line beneath Emily's final condition. My body remains my own. Then he wrote beneath it in a firm hand, no claim upon her person. Ever. Emily stared at the words. Your name, he said. Emily Carter. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. Not at her body. Not at the soaked dress clinging to her thin frame. At her face. Nathan Cole. Emily had heard that name. The Scarred Wolf. A mercenary without a pack. A man rumored to have survived battles that killed everyone beside him. Her pulse quickened. When do I begin? After your brother receives his medicine. Emily blinked. You trust me to come back? Nathan leaned into the shadows again. No, then why let me leave with your silver? His gaze settled on her with an expression she could not read. Because you walked into a room full of wolves willing to buy your desperation, and every time one of them frightened you, you looked at the door. Emily said nothing. Nathan's voice lowered. But you never walked through it. He pushed the money closer. Go save your brother. Emily closed her fingers around the purse. It was heavier than anything she had carried in months. Hope often was. She turned toward the door, then stopped. Nathan. He looked up. Why me? For the first time, something almost human softened the Scarred Mercenary's face. Because you were the only person in this room more afraid for someone else than for yourself. Emily stepped into the rain without knowing that the man behind her was no ordinary mercenary. She did not know why soldiers sometimes lowered their eyes when Nathan Cole passed. She did not know why he hid those violet eyes in shadow. And she could never have guessed that beneath his battered black armor were scars earned on the night an entire kingdom was told its Alpha King had died. 5 years. Nathan Cole repeated, staring at the contract as if Emily had written something offensive rather than desperate. Morning had barely reached the narrow windows of the mercenary tavern when Emily returned. Her white wool dress had dried unevenly overnight, her chestnut hair was braided over one shoulder, and exhaustion burned behind her blue eyes. But Noah's fever had broken. That was all that mattered. The healer had administered the medicine before midnight. By dawn, her brother had opened his eyes and recognized her. Emily had cried so hard she frightened him. Now she stood before the Scarred Mercenary who had purchased 5 years of her labor, ready to keep the promise that had saved Noah's life. Nathan sat alone at the same table. In daylight, he looked even more dangerous. Black leather armor covered his broad frame. A sword hung at his side. The pale scar crossing his face pulled slightly when his jaw tightened. That is what we agreed, Emily said. No, her stomach dropped. No, Nathan placed the contract flat against the table. That is what you offered. Emily stared at him. You paid the healer. I did. Then I owe you. You owe me something. He picked up a charcoal stick. Just not 5 years. Before Emily could understand, Nathan drew a heavy line through the number. 5 disappeared beneath black charcoal. Then he wrote another word. 1. Emily blinked. What are you doing? Correcting a bad bargain. But you already paid me. I know. You could have demanded 10 years. Nathan looked up. Would that make it right? The question silenced her. Emily had spent most of her life around people who treated kindness like an investment. Every favor carried a hidden price. Every meal could become a debt. Every moment of weakness gave someone else leverage. She did not know what to do with a man who had leverage and willingly surrendered most of it. Why? She whispered. Nathan set down the charcoal. Because desperation should not cost someone 5 years of their life. Emily searched his face for mockery. There was none. He turned the contract toward her. Beneath the changed term remained the sentence he had written the night before. No claim upon her person. Ever. Read the conditions, he said. Emily did. 1 year of service. Household work. Cooking when necessary. Caring for horses. Keeping supplies. Assistance during travel. No requirement to fight. No physical claim. No transfer of contract to another person. Her eyes stopped at the final line. Emily Carter may terminate the agreement if Nathan Cole violates any condition above. She looked at him. You added this. Yes. While I was gone. Yes. You are very strange for a mercenary. Something almost amused moved through his eyes. I have been called worse. Emily signed. Nathan signed beneath her name. His handwriting caught her attention again. Elegant. Controlled. Nothing like the rough marks she had seen soldiers scratch onto tavern bills. When do we leave? She asked. Now. Nathan stood. Emily had to tilt her head to look at him. He was taller than she remembered, with the kind of stillness that made other men instinctively create space around him. He placed several coins on the table and walked toward the door. The tavern keeper saw him approaching and immediately straightened. Morning, sir. Nathan gave a slight nod. The man lowered his gaze. Emily noticed. Outside, 2 horses waited beneath a gray sky. One was enormous and black. The other was a gentle chestnut mare already fitted with a smaller saddle. Emily stopped. You brought a horse for me? You expected to walk? I expected whatever you told me to expect. Nathan's expression hardened. Do not say that. Emily frowned. Say what? That you will accept whatever I decide. His voice was quiet, but something beneath it carried the weight of command. You work for me. You are not mine. Emily looked at him for several seconds. There is a difference? Nathan's eyes met hers. For one strange instant, the dark color seemed to thin, revealing violet beneath. There should always be a difference. He mounted the black horse in one effortless movement. Emily followed more awkwardly. They rode north as the town disappeared behind them. Hours passed beneath bare trees and winter clouds. Nathan spoke little. He watched everything. Every ridge. Every trail. Every movement in the forest. Once, 3 armed riders appeared ahead. Emily felt Nathan change before he touched his sword. The riders saw him. One whispered something to another. Then all 3 moved aside. Not merely aside. They lowered their heads as Nathan passed. Emily looked back. Do you know them? No, they knew you. They knew the scar. His answer came too quickly. By late afternoon, Blackwood Forest rose before them, ancient pines swallowing the road in shadow. Nathan turned onto a trail so narrow Emily almost missed it. Eventually, a stone cottage appeared beside a frozen stream. It was larger than she expected, isolated but carefully maintained. Nathan dismounted. Your room is upstairs. Second door. Emily looked toward the forest. And yours? Downstairs. Why? Because if someone comes through that door at night, they reach me first. She stared at him. Nathan began removing supplies from his horse as though he had said nothing unusual. Are people coming for you? His hands stopped. Only for a second. People come for mercenaries eventually. That night, Emily woke to the sound of metal. She slipped from bed and moved toward the stairs. Nathan stood below in darkness, sharpening his sword beside the dying fire. His shirt was open at the collar. Just beneath it, Emily glimpsed the edge of an old burn scar across his chest, and beneath the damaged skin, the faint curve of a black symbol. Nathan suddenly looked up. His eyes caught the firelight. Violet. Bright. Unmistakable. Emily froze. Nathan slowly pulled his collar closed. Neither spoke. Then somewhere deep in Blackwood Forest, a wolf howled. Nathan's face changed. Not fear. Recognition. He rose, took his sword, and moved toward the door. Go back to your room, Emily. Where are you going? His hand rested on the latch. Outside. At midnight. Nathan glanced back at her, Violet already disappearing beneath shadow. Lock the door behind me. Then he vanished into the forest, leaving Emily alone with a question she could no longer ignore. What kind of mercenary needed to hide his eyes? You changed the lock on my bedroom door. Emily stood at the bottom of the stairs with one hand resting on the new iron latch Nathan had installed before sunrise. Nathan looked up from the kitchen table. The old one was weak. You noticed that at midnight? I notice weak locks. Emily folded her arms. 3 days had passed since she followed the Scarred Mercenary into Blackwood Forest, and Nathan Cole had somehow become more confusing with every hour. She had expected orders. Instead, he gave her choices. She had expected a filthy mercenary shelter. Instead, the stone house was organized with almost military precision. Firewood was stacked by size. Dried food was labeled by season. Weapons were positioned where a man could reach them from nearly anywhere downstairs. Nathan slept with a sword beside his bed and his boots facing the door. Yet he had spent an entire morning repairing the lock on Emily's room. From the inside. "Are you expecting someone to break in?" she asked. Nathan returned to the map spread before him. "I expect people to behave according to their nature." "That sounds cheerful." "It keeps me alive." Emily approached the table carrying 2 bowls of stew. Nathan immediately moved several papers aside to make room. Her eyes caught the map before he covered it. Blackwood territory. Military roads. Watchtowers. Supply routes. Several locations had been marked in charcoal. "Planning a job?" Nathan folded the map. "Something like that." Emily set a bowl before him. "Most mercenaries know royal supply routes?" "Good ones do." "And border defenses?" "Useful information." "And the exact rotation of the Northern Watch?" Nathan slowly raised his eyes. Emily smiled innocently. "Also useful?" A faint line appeared between his brows. "You ask many questions. You give very few answers." For the briefest moment, amusement softened the scar across his face. Then it vanished. Nathan tasted the stew. Emily waited. "Well, it is food." She stared at him. "That may be the cruelest thing anyone has ever said to me." His mouth almost moved. Almost. Emily caught it. "Were you about to smile?" "No, you were." "Eat your stew, Emily." She laughed quietly and sat across from him. It was strange how quickly silence had stopped feeling dangerous around Nathan. He never filled it simply because it existed. He could spend an hour sharpening a blade while Emily mended clothing near the fire, neither speaking, and somehow the room remained comfortable. But other things were less comfortable. Nathan knew too much. On their second morning, a merchant arrived selling lamp oil. The man tried to charge Emily twice the normal price. Nathan appeared behind her and quoted a royal trade statute word for word. The merchant immediately corrected the price. Later, Emily asked where Nathan had learned royal law. "I can read," he answered. That was not an answer. Yesterday, they passed 2 former soldiers near the forest road. Both had stared at Nathan's face. One had whispered, "Impossible." Nathan had pretended not to hear. That evening, Emily found him burning an old piece of parchment before she could read the seal. And every night, he disappeared. Always after moonrise. Always toward the deeper forest. He returned before dawn smelling of pine, cold air, and something wild Emily's omega senses could not name. On the 4th evening, Nathan announced they needed supplies. They rode to a village several miles west. Emily expected him to visit the market. Instead, Nathan stopped outside a small farmhouse where a woman stood arguing with 2 armed tax collectors. "The levy was paid last month," the woman pleaded. One soldier kicked over a basket of potatoes. The Regent doubled winter taxes. Nathan became still. Emily had begun recognizing that stillness. It came before anger. "Stay here," he said. Nathan, he was already dismounting. The soldiers turned. "Move along, mercenary." Nathan glanced at the scattered potatoes. "Return her money." The larger soldier laughed. "By whose authority?" Nathan's face changed. Nothing dramatic. His shoulders simply straightened. His chin lifted slightly. But suddenly the scarred mercenary standing in mud looked entirely wrong for the role he claimed. "Return it." 2 words. The soldier's smile disappeared. Emily felt the command in her bones. Alpha. Not ordinary alpha dominance. Something heavier. Older. The second soldier instinctively lowered his head before catching himself. Nathan noticed. So did Emily. "Who are you?" the soldier asked. Nathan's hand moved toward his sword. "Someone giving you an opportunity to leave." They left. No fight. No threats shouted after them. They simply mounted and rode away. The farmer stared at Nathan as if she had seen a ghost. Nathan crouched and began gathering the potatoes from the mud. Emily joined him. "You could have killed them," she said quietly. "Yes, but you didn't. Dead soldiers bring more soldiers." He placed the vegetables back into the basket. "Fear solves today. Strategy keeps tomorrow from becoming worse." Emily stopped. That did not sound like a mercenary. It sounded like someone who had once been responsible for people. Nathan stood and handed the basket to the woman. She whispered her thanks. Then her gaze settled on the scar crossing his face. The color drained from her cheeks. "My king," Nathan's hand closed around her wrist before she could bow. Not violently. Quickly. "You are mistaken." The woman stared into his eyes. For one heartbeat, violet light flickered there. Her lips trembled. Nathan released her and walked toward his horse. Emily followed in silence. They rode halfway home before she spoke. "She called you her king." Nathan kept his eyes on the road. "She is old. She looked younger than you." No answer. "Those soldiers obeyed you before they knew why." Silence. "You quote royal law. You understand military maps. Men who have never met you lower their heads when you pass." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Emily. And your eyes turn violet when you're angry." He stopped his horse. The forest became painfully quiet. Nathan turned toward her. "Some questions have answers that make people dangerous simply for knowing them." Emily's pulse quickened. "Is that a warning?" His scar caught the last light of sunset. "It is the reason I changed your lock." Then he rode ahead, leaving Emily beneath the darkening trees with the sudden, chilling realization that Nathan Cole was not protecting himself from her questions. He was protecting her from their answers. "Why do you sleep like someone is coming to kill you?" Emily asked. Nathan's knife stopped halfway across the whetstone. Outside, Blackwood Forest lay beneath a thin silver moon, its ancient pines bending under the winter wind. Inside the cottage, firelight moved across Nathan's scarred face while Emily sat opposite him, mending a tear in her white wool sleeve. 14 days had passed since she arrived. Long enough to learn his habits. Nathan never sat with his back to a window. He checked every door twice before sleeping. He kept one blade beneath his pillow, another inside his boot, and a third hidden beneath the kitchen table. When strangers approached, he heard them before the horses did. And every morning, before Emily woke, he walked the perimeter of the cottage searching for tracks. "Mercenaries make enemies," he said. Emily pushed the needle through the fabric. "You say that whenever you don't want to answer." "It remains true. So does the fact that you avoid answering." Nathan resumed sharpening the knife. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. Emily watched him from beneath lowered lashes. The fire outlined his broad shoulders beneath a loose black shirt. Without armor, he seemed less frightening. Almost. The scar across his face still gave him the appearance of a man who had survived something terrible and expected it to return. "Tomorrow we need salt," Emily said. "We have enough. For 3 days. 5. 3 if you continue pretending my stew is edible while eating 2 bowls." Nathan looked up. Emily smiled. Was that almost another smile? "No, you're getting worse at lying." His expression went still. "I am excellent at lying." The humor left Emily's face. Something in the way he said it felt too honest. Nathan stood. "I'm going outside." "Again?" "Lock the door." He reached for his black coat. Emily set down her sewing. "Nathan." He paused. "Where do you go every night?" "Into the forest." I had gathered that. "Then why ask?" "Because normal people usually have reasons for walking into wolf territory after midnight." His eyes met hers. Violet flickered beneath the darkness. "Who told you I was normal?" Before Emily could answer, Nathan stepped outside. The door closed. She heard his boots cross the frozen ground. Then silence. Emily stared at the latch. "Lock the door." She should obey. Instead, a strange unease crawled across her skin. Her omega instincts had been restless all evening. Not fear exactly. A pressure in the air. The feeling of being watched. Emily moved toward the window. Nathan had disappeared among the trees. She reached for the latch. Then she heard it. A branch breaking behind the cottage. Emily froze. Another sound came from the opposite side. Soft. Deliberate. Footsteps. More than one person. She backed away from the window. 3 knocks struck the front door. Not Nathan's signal. Emily's pulse jumped. Open up. A man's voice. She remained silent. We know Cole lives here. Emily looked toward the kitchen table. Nathan's hidden knife. She pulled it free. The handle felt enormous in her hand. He isn't here. Silence followed. Then a quiet laugh. We know. The latch moved. Emily stepped backward. Leave. Just open the door, girl. The witch shuddered beneath a heavy impact. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Another blow. The new lock Nathan had installed held. Suddenly, she understood why he had replaced it. The third impact cracked the frame. Emily ran toward the stairs. The door burst inward. Cold air swept through the cottage. 3 men entered wearing dark travel cloaks over leather armor. No pack markings. No visible insignia. The first looked at Emily. Where is he? She tightened both hands around the knife. I don't know. Wrong answer. He stepped forward. Emily retreated. Nathan warned you, didn't he? Another man said. Told you not to ask questions? Her blood went cold. They knew about her. The first man reached for her. A shadow moved through the broken doorway. Fast. The man never touched Emily. Nathan seized his wrist and twisted it behind him, driving him face first into the table. The second attacker reached for his sword. Nathan kicked the weapon away before it cleared the sheath. The third froze. Nathan stood between Emily and all 3 men. No coat. No sword. Only the knife in his hand and something terrifying in his eyes. You came into my house. His voice was almost soft. The first attacker struggled upright. The Regent wants proof. Nathan became perfectly still. Proof of what? The man smiled through a split lip. That the dead king still breathes. Emily stopped breathing. Nathan moved. The fight lasted seconds. Not wild. Not brutal. Precise. He struck wrists, knees, shoulders, ending every attack before it fully began. 1 man escaped through the broken door. The others followed when Nathan deliberately gave them room to flee. Emily stared after them. You let them go. Yes. Why? Because frightened men run home. Nathan picked up his coat. And I need to know where home is. Emily looked at him differently then. He had not fought like a hired sword. He had fought like someone trained to survive assassination. Nathan took 1 step and suddenly stumbled. Emily saw the dark stains spreading beneath his shirt. You're hurt. It's nothing. Sit down. Emily, sit. To her surprise, he did. She opened his shirt carefully. A shallow cut crossed his ribs, but that was not what made her hands stop. Nathan's chest was covered in scars. Old blades. Burns. Silver wounds. And directly over his heart was a damaged symbol, deliberately seared until almost unrecognizable. A crown surrounded by a wolf. Emily had seen that crest before. On old Blackwood coins. On monuments to the royal family. Her fingertips moved toward it. Nathan caught her wrist. His grip was immediate but not painful. For the first time since she had known him, Emily saw genuine fear in his face. Never ask me about that mark. Emily looked from the burned crest to his violet eyes. Those men called you a dead king. Nathan released her. Forget what you heard. Who are you? His jaw tightened. Outside, somewhere among the trees, a wolf howled. Then another answered. Nathan looked toward the broken doorway as if he understood exactly what they were saying. Someone who should have stayed dead. He rose and pulled his shirt closed over the royal scar. Emily remained beside the fire, the bloodied cloth forgotten in her hands. For 2 weeks, she had wondered what kind of mercenary needed to hide his eyes. Now she understood she had been asking the wrong question. The real question was why someone had tried so desperately to erase the man beneath the scar. Men who wanted a kingdom did this to me. Nathan's voice was quiet, but Emily's fingers stopped above the scar crossing his chest. Dawn had not yet reached Blackwood Forest. The cottage remained cold after the attack, its broken front door temporarily secured with a heavy wooden table. Wind slipped through the damaged frame, stirring the fire and carrying the smell of pine into the room. Nathan sat shirtless on a chair while Emily cleaned the cut beneath his ribs. She had already washed away the fresh blood. What remained disturbed her more. His body was a map of old violence. Thin silver scars crossed his shoulders. A jagged wound disappeared beneath his left arm. Burn marks covered part of his back. None looked accidental. But the worst was the damaged symbol above his heart. A crowned wolf. Someone had burned it deliberately, again and again, until the royal crest was almost erased. Almost. Emily dipped the cloth into warm water. You told me never to ask. Nathan stared into the fire. You were going to ask anyway. Yes. Then I saved us both time. She pressed the cloth carefully against his newest wound. His muscles tightened. Does that hurt? No, Emily pressed slightly harder. Nathan looked at her. That does. Good. Now I know you can tell the truth. Something faint touched his expression. Not quite amusement. Emily lowered her gaze before he could see how much that almost smile affected her. Those men knew this mark. Nathan said nothing. They mentioned the Regent. Silence. And they called you a dead king. His jaw tightened. Emily waited. She had learned that Nathan's silences were rarely empty. They were doors. Push too hard and they locked. Wait long enough and sometimes he opened them himself. 2 years ago, he finally said there was a battle near the northern pass. Emily knew the story. Everyone did. The night the Alpha King disappeared. Nathan's violet eyes lifted to hers. That is what people call it? The royal army said the king was killed by rebels. His body was never recovered. Convenient. One word. Bitter enough to change the air between them. Emily looked at the ruined crest again. Were you there? Yes. Did you serve him? Nathan's mouth became a hard line. Something like that. It was not the truth. Emily knew it immediately. But before she could challenge him, Nathan stood and reached for his shirt. We leave within the hour. Leave? They found the cottage. You said you let them escape so they would lead you somewhere. They will. Then why run? Nathan pulled the black fabric over his shoulders. Retreat and running are different things. That sounds like something a commander would say. His hands paused on the buttons. Emily saw it. You fight like one too. I have fought in wars. Mercenaries fight for whoever pays them. Nathan looked at her. And commanders? They fight for people. Something shifted behind his eyes. Pain, perhaps. Sometimes they fail them. Emily's anger softened. Nathan turned toward the window. Through the cracked shutters, the first gray light of morning appeared between the trees. Pack only what you can carry. Where are we going? West. That is not a place. It is a direction. Nathan. He exhaled slowly. There is a village 3 hours from here. We need supplies before taking the mountain road. By midday, they reached Millhaven. Emily knew something was wrong before they entered the square. No children played outside. Market stalls stood half empty. 2 houses had burned recently, their blackened beams rising against the winter sky. Soldiers wearing the Regent's gray crest were loading sacks of grain onto wagons. A farmer knelt in the mud nearby. Blood ran from his lip. Nathan stopped walking. Keep moving, Emily whispered. His face had gone frighteningly still. Nathan. A soldier kicked the farmer. Nathan turned. Emily closed her eyes briefly. Of course he did. That grain belongs to the village, Nathan said. The soldiers laughed. Their captain approached. And who are you? Nathan looked at the wagons, the soldiers, the narrow streets, the frightened villagers watching from windows. Emily saw his eyes calculating distances. Exits. Numbers. Positions. Put 2 men on the eastern lane, Nathan told the villagers. Everyone stared at him. Barricade the western entrance with those carts. Archers on the mill roof. No one attacks unless they enter the square. The farmer slowly stood. Then another villager moved. Then another. No one asked why they should obey him. They simply did. Within minutes, frightened farmers had become an organized defensive line. Emily watched in disbelief. Nathan did not shout. He did not need to. His voice carried certainty, and people responded as though some buried instinct recognized it. The soldiers noticed too. Their captain's smile faded. Who taught you battlefield command? Nathan stepped forward. Men who are dead now. The captain reached for his sword. Nathan's eyes flashed violet. The man stopped. For one breath, the entire square became silent. Then Nathan spoke. "Leave the grain." The captain looked around. Villagers now occupied every exit. Archers waited above. He slowly released his sword. "This is not finished." "It never is." The soldiers withdrew. Only when the last wagon disappeared did the villagers begin breathing again. An elderly man approached Nathan, his eyes fixed on the scar. Then the violet eyes. His face went white. He started to kneel. Nathan caught his shoulder. "Don't." The old man trembled. "But I remember, you remember nothing." Nathan's voice was low. Desperate. Emily had never heard desperation from him before. The old man nodded and stepped away. Nathan turned and found Emily watching. "Mercenaries follow orders," she said softly. He said nothing. Emily looked around at the villagers who had obeyed him without hesitation. "You give them." Nathan's expression closed. "We should go." Emily followed him toward the horses. But something had changed. The scar no longer looked like evidence of a violent life. The burned royal mark no longer looked like a mystery. And Nathan's habit of watching doors no longer looked like paranoia. Someone had hunted this man. Someone had tried to erase his identity. Someone had wanted a kingdom badly enough to make certain he could never return to it. Emily mounted her horse beside him. "Nathan." He looked at her. If the Alpha King survived that night, she paused. Would the Regent kill to keep him hidden? Nathan's violet eyes went cold. He already did. Then he rode toward the mountains, leaving Emily with the terrifying certainty that Nathan Cole knew exactly how kings were killed because, somehow, he had survived the death of one. Those soldiers will return with more men. Emily stood beside Nathan on the ridge above Millhaven, watching the Regent's gray banners disappear between the distant trees. Nathan did not look at her. Yes. Below them, villagers hurried through the square, carrying grain back into homes and reinforcing the barricades Nathan had ordered. What had been a frightened village less than an hour earlier now moved with purpose. Nathan had done that. Not with a sword. Not with threats. With 6 commands spoken in a voice people somehow trusted before they understood why. Emily tightened her white cloak around her shoulders. How many? If their captain is intelligent, 40. And if he isn't? 80. Emily stared at him. That was supposed to make me feel better? No, Nathan turned toward the village. It was supposed to make you understand why we cannot stay. They descended the hill as evening gathered over the valley. Nathan moved through Millhaven checking defenses before leaving. He showed a blacksmith where to narrow the western passage. He moved barrels away from a building that could catch fire. He ordered water buckets placed along every rooftop. Emily followed silently. He knew where an attacking force would enter before anyone attacked. He knew where frightened civilians should hide. He knew how many archers could defend a street without blocking one another. And the strangest part was how naturally everyone obeyed him. At the mill, an elderly woman caught Nathan's sleeve. My son is at the eastern watchtower. Nathan stopped. How many men? 7. Send 2 back. Keep 5. If they see gray banners, light 1 fire. If they see more than 50 soldiers, light 2. The woman nodded immediately. Yes, sir. Nathan continued walking. Emily remained beside him. You didn't even think about that. About what? The signal fires. There was nothing to think about. Exactly. He looked at her. Emily lowered her voice. You know how to protect villages you've never seen. You know royal roads. Military formations. Supply routes. You quote laws most nobles probably don't remember. Nathan's expression closed. We have discussed this. No. I have asked. You have avoided. Emily. And people keep almost kneeling to you. He stopped. Enough. The command struck her harder than his volume ever could. Her Omega instincts reacted instantly, breath catching as power pressed against the air. Nathan saw it. His face changed. The pressure vanished. I'm sorry. Emily blinked. An alpha apologizing for using dominance was rare enough. Nathan doing it immediately felt stranger still. You don't have to be afraid of me, he said. I'm not. You should be. Why? His scar tightened as his jaw moved. Because people standing near me tend to become targets. Before Emily could answer, a bell rang from the eastern edge of Millhaven. Once, Nathan spun toward the watchtower. A column of smoke rose into the darkening sky. One signal fire. They came back quickly, Emily whispered. Nathan was already moving. Get inside the mill. No, he stopped. Emily. I'm not fighting. But I can help move children and supplies. Inside. You paid for my labor, remember? His eyes flashed. Do not use that contract to win arguments. Then stop giving me unreasonable orders. For one impossible second, Nathan looked as though he might laugh. Instead, another bell rang. His face hardened. Stay behind the barricade. Agreed. Riders appeared minutes later. More than 20 gray-coated soldiers entered the far end of the road. Their captain from earlier rode at the front. By authority of Regent Marcus Blackwood, he shouted, this village will surrender the mercenary called Nathan Cole. Nathan stepped into the center of the street. Alone. Emily's stomach dropped. Nathan. He did not turn. The captain smiled. Give yourself up, and the village remains untouched. Nathan looked toward the windows. Families were hiding behind them. Children. Farmers. People who had nothing to do with him. Emily saw the decision forming in his face. He was going to surrender. She moved before thinking. Wait. Every head turned toward her. Emily climbed onto the wooden barricade. You said the Regent sent you? The captain frowned. Get down, Omega. Then you carry his authority? Yes. Emily pointed toward the sacks of grain still lying near the square. Royal Winter Code, Section 12. Military forces cannot confiscate food from a settlement below emergency reserve without written decree bearing the sovereign seal. Silence. Nathan slowly looked at her. Emily's heart hammered. She had heard him quote the statute days earlier. She had remembered every word. Show us the decree, she said. The captain's face darkened. The regent is sovereign authority. A regent governs for a king, Emily replied. He is not one. The villagers began murmuring. Nathan's eyes fixed on her. Something almost like pride appeared there. The captain drew his sword. Enough. Nathan moved between him and Emily. Yes, he said quietly. Enough. The captain charged. Nathan avoided the first strike, caught the man's sword arm, and pulled him from the saddle. 3 soldiers rushed forward. Nathan moved with frightening precision. One weapon struck dirt. Another man fell backward. A third stopped before attacking. Nathan's eyes were glowing now. Violet light burned beneath the gathering darkness. Then something changed. Power rolled outward. Emily felt it hit her like warm thunder. Every horse went still. Every wolf-blooded soldier froze. The captain tried to stand. His knees hit the ground instead. One by one, the others followed. Not because Nathan ordered them to. Their bodies simply obeyed. The villagers stared. Emily could hear her own heartbeat. Nathan stood in the center of the road, scarred face cold, black armor dark beneath the winter sky. For one breathtaking moment, there was nothing mercenary about him. He looked like a man armies had once followed. The captain lifted his head with terror in his eyes. That aura, Nathan's face hardened. Leave. The soldiers did. No argument. No threat. They mounted and fled toward the eastern road. Nathan remained motionless until the last gray cloak vanished. Then he turned toward Emily. The violet glow faded slowly from his eyes. She climbed down from the barricade. Nathan, we leave tonight. What was that? Not here. Those men couldn't stand. Emily. They knelt. Nathan stepped closer, lowering his voice. And now they know. A cold realization moved through her. Know what? His eyes shifted toward the road where the soldiers had disappeared. That the man they were ordered to hunt is not just alive. He looked back at her. Fear lived behind the violet now, not for himself. For her. They know what kind of wolf I am. Tell me who you are, or I leave tonight. Emily's voice did not shake, although everything inside her wanted to. Nathan stood across from her in the abandoned hunting lodge they had reached after midnight, his black armor still wet from the freezing rain. Between them, A small fire burned beneath a cracked stone chimney. They had ridden for hours after leaving Millhaven. Nathan had chosen hidden trails, crossed streams to erase their scent, and doubled back twice to make certain no soldiers followed. He had explained none of it. Emily was done accepting silence as an answer. Nathan slowly removed his gloves. You should leave. She stared at him. That is your answer? It is the safest choice. For whom? You. Emily laughed once, without humor. You bought 1 year of my labor, changed my lock so I could protect myself, stood between me and armed men, and nearly started a war in a village because soldiers stole grain from hungry families. She stepped closer. Then 20 trained wolves fell to their knees because your eyes changed color. Nathan's jaw tightened. I never asked them to kneel. That makes it worse. Silence settled between them. Rain struck the roof. Emily could hear Nathan breathing. Slow. Controlled. Who are you? She asked again. Nathan Cole. No, something flashed in his violet eyes. That name kept me alive. That doesn't make it yours. The words struck deeper than she expected. Nathan looked away. Emily reached inside her cloak and pulled out the folded contract. When I signed this, I told you everything that mattered. My name. My family. Noah. My debt. My desperation. She placed the paper on the table. You knew exactly who you were taking into your house. Nathan's gaze dropped to it. And I still don't know who took me. His face hardened. I never took you. Then tell me the truth. Nathan remained motionless for several seconds. Finally, he reached for the contract. Emily expected him to open it. Instead, he tore it in half. The sound seemed impossibly loud. Emily froze. Nathan tore it again. 4 pieces fell onto the table. What are you doing? Ending it. Nathan, you owe me nothing. Her stomach tightened. You paid 30 crowns. I paid a healer. For me. For Noah. Because I promised you a year. Nathan's eyes lifted to hers. No, his voice became quieter. You promised because you were terrified your brother would die. Emily could not speak. Nathan pushed the torn pieces toward her. That is not the same thing as choosing. Something painful opened beneath her ribs. So you're sending me away. I'm setting you free. Those are not always the same thing. Nathan flinched so slightly she almost missed it. Emily hated that she noticed. Hated even more that she cared. Is this because the Regent knows where you are? Yes. Because those soldiers saw what you can do? Yes. Because you think they'll use me against you? Nathan did not answer. That was answer enough. Emily stepped closer. What are you? His gaze met hers. An alpha. I have met alphas. Not like me. Then explain it. Nathan looked toward the fire. There are bloodlines older than the packs that exist now. Wolves whose dominance is inherited differently. When they command, weaker wolves feel compelled to obey. Emily remembered 20 soldiers collapsing to their knees. Royal blood. Nathan's face became unreadable. I did not say that. You didn't need to. She moved around the table. The burned crest on your chest. The soldiers. The maps. The old woman who called you king. The regent hunting you. Nathan's hand closed around the edge of the table. Stop. Why? Because every piece you understand makes you harder to keep alive. Then stop deciding what I'm allowed to know. Nathan turned toward her. His eyes ignited violet. You think this is about control? Isn't it? This is about graves. The words exploded from him. Emily went still. Nathan's breathing changed. Men died because they stood beside me. Soldiers. Servants. Friends. He pulled open the collar of his shirt and exposed the ruined crown wolf mark. They used silver so the wounds would not heal. They burned this from my skin while I was still conscious because they wanted names. Emily's anger disappeared. Nathan's voice lowered. I gave them none. She looked at the scars differently now. Not trophies. Not evidence of violence. Evidence of what he had refused to surrender. Emily raised her hand. Nathan caught her wrist before she touched the damaged crest. Instinct. His grip loosened immediately. Sorry. Emily did not pull away. Who did this? Nathan looked at her fingers inside his hand. Men who believed killing one wolf could give them a kingdom. And did it? His eyes lifted. For 2 years. Emily's heartbeat stumbled. There it was. Not a confession. Not quite. But close enough to make the room feel smaller. Nathan. A sound came from outside. Metal against stone. Nathan extinguished the fire with one movement. Darkness swallowed them. Behind me. The lodge door burst inward. 3 figures entered. Nathan moved before Emily saw their faces. The first attacker struck with a short blade. Nathan blocked, twisted, and drove him into the wall. Another came from the side. Emily saw the flash of steel aimed toward Nathan's ribs. Left. Nathan turned, but the third man changed direction. Toward Emily. She backed against the table. The attacker reached for her. Nathan saw him. Something inside the mercenary broke. A growl rolled through the lodge, too deep to sound entirely human. Violet light flooded his eyes. The attacker stopped. Nathan crossed the room with terrifying speed and placed himself between them. Power slammed through the air. All 3 wolves collapsed to their knees. Do not touch her. Nathan's voice carried something ancient beneath it. The attackers trembled. Emily stared at his back. The broad shoulders. The scarred hands. The man who had just destroyed the only contract binding her to him. Nathan could command wolves to kneel. He could probably command her fear. But he had chosen instead to give her freedom. Go, Nathan ordered the attackers. They fled. Silence returned. Nathan remained facing the doorway. You should leave before sunrise, he said. Emily looked at the torn contract. She could go home now. Back to Noah. Back to a life without assassins, royal scars, or violet eyes. She was free. Nathan had made certain of it. Emily slowly gathered the 4 pieces of paper from the table. Fine. Nathan's shoulders stiffened. I'll leave. She walked toward the stairs without looking back. But as Emily climbed into the darkness, she realized something that frightened her more than the men who had attacked them. For the first time since entering that tavern, staying beside Nathan Cole would no longer be a debt. If she stayed now, it would be a choice. I changed my mind. Nathan stopped tightening the saddle strap. Dawn had barely touched the mountains, leaving the abandoned hunting lodge surrounded by blue-gray mist. Emily stood behind him in her white wool dress and cloak, her small travel bag hanging from one shoulder. 4 torn pieces of their contract rested inside her pocket. Nathan looked at the bag first. Then at her. About leaving? About why I'm leaving. His expression became guarded. Emily. You gave me my freedom. Yes. You told me to go. Yes. She stepped closer. So I did. Something moved behind his violet eyes. He turned back toward the horse. Good. Emily almost smiled. I made it halfway down the mountain. Nathan's hands stopped. Then I realized something. He slowly faced her. What? You never asked me to stay. His jaw tightened. I had no right to. Exactly. The morning wind moved through Emily's chestnut hair. She had spent the last hours walking alone beneath dark pines, listening to every sensible thought in her head. Noah was safe with the healer. The contract was destroyed. Nathan's enemies were not hers. She could return to town, find work, and forget the Scarred Mercenary with too many secrets. She had tried. Then she remembered Nathan changing 5 years into 1. Repairing her lock from the inside. Standing between her and armed men. Tearing apart the only piece of paper that gave him any claim over her labor. She remembered the look in his eyes when he told her everyone beside him became a target. Nathan was not afraid she would abandon him. He was afraid she would stay and die. You should not have come back, he said. Probably not. The Regent's hunters know I'm alive. I know. More will come. I know. I cannot promise I can protect you every time. Emily's voice softened. I know. Frustration flashed across his face. Then what are you doing here? She reached into her pocket and placed the torn contract on the saddle between them. Choosing. Nathan stared at the pieces. Emily continued. Yesterday I was here because I owed you 30 silver crowns. She shook her head. Today I owe you nothing. Nathan looked at her. That is why today matters. Silence stretched between them. His scarred face revealed almost nothing, but Emily saw his throat move as he swallowed. You do not know me. Whose fault is that? A surprised breath escaped him. Almost laughter. Emily's mouth curved. There. You did it again. Did what? Nearly smiled. This is a serious conversation. You are terrible at serious conversations. I have survived interrogations more pleasant than this. The humor vanished as soon as the words left him. Emily heard what lay beneath them. Interrogations. The burned crest. Silver scars. Names he had refused to surrender. She stepped nearer. Then tell me one true thing. Nathan looked at her carefully. One. Start small. He considered the request. I hate honey. Emily blinked. What? You asked for one true thing. You hate honey? Yes. You ate honey on bread yesterday. You made it. Emily stared at him. Nathan's expression remained perfectly serious. Then she laughed. The sound escaped before she could stop it, bright and ridiculous in the cold morning. Something softened in Nathan's face. This time he actually smiled. It was small, uneven because of the scar. And it changed him completely. Emily forgot what she had been about to say. Nathan noticed. The smile disappeared first. We need to move. Of course. They rode north instead of west. Nathan refused to explain their destination beyond saying there were people he trusted near the old border. By afternoon, the mountain road narrowed between steep cliffs. Snow began falling. Emily noticed Nathan becoming increasingly alert. His gaze moved constantly across the tree line. Then his horse stopped. Nathan raised one fist. What? Emily whispered. Quiet. Nothing moved. Then an arrow struck the road inches from his horse. Nathan turned instantly. Ride. More arrows descended from the ridge. They pushed their horses toward the trees. 4 riders appeared ahead. 3 more behind. Nathan drew his sword. Stay close. The attackers wore no Regent insignia this time. Their faces were covered. They had learned. Nathan met the first rider at full speed, deflecting his blade and knocking him from the saddle. Another came from Emily's right. She pulled her horse away. The attacker followed. Nathan. His head snapped toward her. The world seemed to slow. The masked wolf reached for Emily. Nathan's violet eyes ignited. Power tore through the mountain pass. Horses screamed and stopped. The attacker froze. Nathan dismounted and crossed the distance between them. I warned you. His voice no longer sounded like the man who hated honey. It sounded like something built to command armies. The masked wolf collapsed to one knee. Then another. Then another. Within seconds, every attacker was kneeling in the snow. Nathan stood among them, black armor dusted white, scar visible beneath the pale sky. Who sent you? No one answered. Nathan approached the nearest man. Who? The wolf trembled. Regent Marcus. Nathan's face hardened. What were your orders? The attacker looked toward Emily. Nathan followed his gaze. A terrible stillness entered him. Say it. Take the Omega alive. Emily's blood went cold. Nathan grabbed the man by his collar. Why? Because Marcus knows you protect her. Nathan's grip tightened. That is not enough. The prisoner swallowed. He said if Nathan Cole chose an Omega over his own safety. His eyes lifted fearfully toward Nathan's glowing violet gaze. Then the king inside him must finally be waking up. Silence swallowed the mountain pass. Emily stared at Nathan. Nathan slowly released the prisoner. The man's words remained between them. The king inside him. Emily's heartbeat pounded. She remembered the crowned wolf burned above Nathan's heart. The villagers who almost knelt. The soldiers whose bodies obeyed his presence. The story of an alpha king whose corpse had never been found. Nathan turned toward her. For the first time, Emily saw something in his face she had never expected from him. Defeat. Not because the attackers had won. Because the secret was running out of places to hide. Emily stepped toward him. Nathan. His eyes closed briefly. Not here. Then where? He looked toward the northern mountains. Somewhere I can finally tell you why Nathan Cole had to exist. Emily glanced at the kneeling wolves, then back at the scarred man she had voluntarily returned to before knowing what crown might belong to him. She had chosen Nathan when he was nobody. By nightfall, she would begin discovering exactly who she had chosen. If I stay, it won't be because of the contract. Emily stood beneath the ruined archway of an abandoned border chapel, watching snow gather on Nathan's black armor. They had left the captured attackers miles behind after taking their weapons and horses. Night had fallen before Nathan finally stopped at the forgotten stone sanctuary hidden among the northern mountains. He had barely spoken since the prisoner called him a king. Now Nathan stood before a weathered statue of a crowned wolf whose face had been broken away. "I know," he said. Emily touched the torn pieces of their contract inside her pocket. "Do you?" Nathan looked at her. Firelight from a small brazier caught his scar, turning the pale line across his face almost silver. "You were free to leave this morning. And I came back." His jaw tightened. "That was a mistake." "Stop doing that." "Doing what?" "Deciding my choices are mistakes because they frighten you." Nathan went still. Emily stepped closer. "I sold you my labor because Noah was dying. You destroyed the contract. You gave me every reason to leave." Her blue eyes held his. "I came back anyway." Something raw crossed Nathan's expression. "Why?" The question was almost a whisper. Emily could have lied. She could have said gratitude. Loyalty. Debt of another kind. Instead, she answered, "Because when everyone else saw a desperate Omega they could exploit, you saw someone who deserved a locked bedroom door." Nathan looked away. "That is a very low standard. You would be surprised how many men fail it." A quiet breath escaped him. Emily moved beside the brazier. "And because I think you are lonely." His eyes returned to her. "I am not. You live alone in a forest, talk to almost no one, disappear at night, sleep beside 3 knives, and pretend you hate every meal I cook." "I do hate some of them." "Nathan." This time he smiled. Briefly. Painfully. Then it disappeared. "You asked who I am." Emily's heartbeat changed. Nathan removed one glove. On his right hand was a thin white scar circling his ring finger, as though something had once been violently cut from it. Nathan Cole did not exist until 2 years ago. Emily said nothing. "Before that, I had another name." He walked toward the broken statue. His fingers touched the carved crowned wolf. "I was raised inside Blackwood Citadel. I learned military command before I was old enough to grow a beard. At 17, I led my first border patrol. At 23, my father died." Emily barely breathed. "And the crown passed his son." Nathan closed his eyes. "Yes." The words seemed to cost him something. Emily stared at the scarred mercenary she had met in a tavern. The man who repaired locks. Who hated honey. Who gathered potatoes from mud after frightening soldiers away. "Your name," she whispered. Nathan turned. His violet eyes were fully visible now. No shadow. No attempt to hide them. Nathaniel Blackwood. Emily's breath left her. The missing Alpha King. Every story she had heard as a child crashed together at once. King Nathaniel, crowned at 23. The young Alpha who ended the Western Pack raids. The ruler declared dead after the Northern Pass massacre. No body recovered. No royal burial. 2 years later, Regent Marcus still governed in the name of a dead cousin whose throne remained officially empty. Emily took one step backward. Nathan noticed. Pain hardened his face immediately. "That is why I did not tell you. You lied to me." "Yes." No excuse. No denial. Somehow that hurt more. "Every time I asked?" "Yes." "The cottage? The maps? Those people recognizing you? All true. And the scars?" Nathan's gaze dropped. "Marcus invited me to negotiate with 3 Eastern commanders who supposedly wanted peace. The meeting was a trap." His fingers touched the scar across his face. "My own guard captain opened the gates." Emily felt cold despite the fire. "They used silver. So I could not shift properly." He pulled his collar aside, exposing the damaged royal crest over his heart. "They wanted the names of commanders who would refuse Marcus." Emily remembered his words. "I gave them none." "How did you survive?" "A soldier named Caleb carried me through a drainage tunnel beneath the fortress." Nathan's voice became quieter. "He died before sunrise." Silence filled the chapel. Emily understood now why Nathan watched doors, why he slept armed, why loyalty frightened him more than enemies. "Why didn't you return?" she asked. Nathan gave a hollow laugh. "Return to whom?" "Marcus controlled the citadel. Half the council declared me dead before anyone had seen a body. The surviving commanders were imprisoned, bought, or executed." He looked at his scarred hands. "A king without an army is just a man someone has not finished killing." Emily's chest tightened. "So you became Nathan Cole. A mercenary is useful. Invisible. No court. No banners. No one dies for standing beside him." Nathan looked at her. "Until you." Emily understood the warning beneath those words. "That is why you tore the contract." "Yes. You thought freeing me would protect me. I hoped." She approached him slowly. "And now Marcus knows about me." Nathan's expression darkened. "Yes. Then leaving you would not make me invisible again." "No, so stop pretending sending me away solves everything." His violet gaze held hers. For several seconds, the Alpha King disappeared, and Emily saw only Nathan. Tired. Scarred. Afraid to want anyone close enough to lose. She reached for his hand. He looked down as her fingers closed around his. "I came back before I knew your name," she said. "Remember that." Nathan's hand slowly tightened around hers. Then a horse screamed outside. Nathan released her instantly and drew his sword. Boots struck stone beyond the chapel. Emily turned toward the entrance. A figure stumbled through the archway wearing a torn Blackwood military cloak. He dropped to one knee. "Your Majesty." Nathan froze. The soldier lifted his bloodied face. "Commander Hayes? We found you." Relief broke across the man's expression. Then fear replaced it. "But Marcus knows the Omega's identity." Emily's stomach dropped. Nathan stepped forward. "What happened?" Hayes looked at Emily. "His men went to her village." The world narrowed. "Noah," Emily whispered. The commander lowered his eyes. "They took your brother before sunset." Nathan's alpha power struck the chapel like thunder. Dust fell from the ancient stones. His eyes burned violet. Emily's knees almost weakened, but his hand found hers before she could fall. "What does Marcus want?" Nathan asked. Hayes swallowed. "The king." Nathan became terrifyingly calm. Emily looked at him, suddenly understanding the trap. Marcus had finally found something Nathan could not hide behind a false name to protect. Her. Nathan lifted his sword. Then, for the first time in 2 years, his scarred face turned toward the distant lights of Blackwood territory. Marcus is going to get exactly what he asked for.